welcome back to another video. We are still talking about have you seen God? These are people's personal experiences, supposedly. I'm not criticizing or commenting, just saying we're supposing that they're all true because they're posted on Reddit. And here we go. Ready? First story. I was 16, went with my French class to Montreal for the long weekend, and ended up in the same room as some really nice, popular girls. Anyway, one night I didn't feel like going out shopping or whatever they were doing, so I stayed behind alone. I've been having some social and mental problems for quite some time by then. Self-injury, depression, mood swings, insomnia, eating disorders. Hadn't gotten on medication by that point. I began to get horribly depressed, and for whatever reason I decided to kill myself there. Our room was fairly high in the hotel, so I tried to jump out the window a couple times, but I slipped. I ended up back on the floor several feet away and tried again, but then it was like a curtain was pulled back and I could see much more. There were black monsters the size of a medium-sized dog biting my shoulders and pushing me towards the window. There was a giant man dressed in white, completely blocking the window and brandishing a broadsword. There was a bit of a standoff for a while, but the bad dudes finally let me go and locked myself in the bathroom for a good cry. I could have injured myself to get myself back to normal. Not a healthy reaction, just what I was doing at the time. But I couldn't pick things up. The white guy was gone when I came out, and I never saw him go. That's the only time I ever saw them, but they looked so familiar I might have encountered them before. I've tried to jump out of the windows before that and never succeeded. I've nearly been hit by cars more times than I can count, but I hadn't found the right medication for my insomnia when I did. I wouldn't have passed high school, let alone gotten into a top university or become healthy enough for a real relationship. Someone replied with, "Wow, that's intense. Glad to hear you're doing better." This post gave me a weird chill around me and brought some weird tingly response to my entire body. I hope you're doing okay, though. It sounds rough. I'm doing fine now, thanks. I was agnostic for a while, but those kinds of incidents really got me, especially when you keep not dying. That convinced me more than any evangelist that there's something up there who's keeping me there for some reason. On track to becoming a researcher now. That is an awesome story. Not just the story itself, but the updates, the positive feedback there. There are people who are supposed to be here no matter what. I think everyone is, but sometimes you have to get slapped in the face or not thrown off a building to understand you're needed, you're wanted, and you deserve to live. And I'm glad to see this person has found that. Well, reading some of these major ones, mine is tiny, but here it goes. I go to a beautiful university by the sea, except since we are university students, the beaches get trashed a lot. I'm slightly strange, so I enjoy taking a walk in the middle of the night and picking the rubbish up. It's like a perfect mix of just taking a calm walk and feeling good because you are helping. Anyway, I have been working this particular stretch for about an hour and was ready to call it a day when I noticed a smaller patch that I missed. No big deal. That would mean an extra trip to the rubbish bin. It's a McDonald's cup or something like that. I figure it's worth it and head over. I don't know what happened, but at the time I got there, it was really a beautiful bit of sea glass. I've been around that beach for 3 years, and it's the only time I have ever found sea glass there. I don't know. It's silly. It's small. I was tired and it was late, but it felt like a thank you. That's good, though. Let's see. Small things. That's okay. I don't see why that would be a bad thing. Yes, every time I go to Mass, Jesus Christ is present in the most blessed sacrament. It is the closest thing to heaven on earth. God is with us at Mass and adoration. I'm not a religious person anymore. I freed my mind from the shackles of monotheism. However, something will change or at least challenge everyone who is sure in their beliefs. To put that experience into words is impossible and cheapens even if you try. All I can say is jump in. Nothing that you can do will prepare you for it. I don't quite know what they're trying to say, but I thought we'd include it anyway. Not really God, but I definitely felt that there was something else present. I was in the hospital emergency room, A&E, currently on schedule to die because of reasons. The chances of my surviving were ridiculously slim, and I can say now that there is nothing more horrifying than seeing that the doctors caring for you are clearly terrified that you're about to kick the bucket. I was lying in the bed, terrified. All I could think of was that maybe things would get better and that I still had so much ahead of me. Just as I was about to start crying again, I suddenly felt strangely peaceful. Here's what it gets a bit daft sounding. I sort of felt a voice in my head tell me that everything was going to be okay. Shortly afterward, we learned that things weren't as catastrophically bad as they were when I came in, and that I would probably make it through. Obviously, I did. It feels really weird to think about it now. God works in mysterious ways, that's what I'm saying. And, maybe they work through doctors, maybe they work through nurses, maybe they work through you, and take it, be happy with it, learn from it, and go forward. I'll start by saying I'm agnostic, and that being said, I have experience that I just can't explain. One day while I was at work, I worked at a residential treatment center for the criminally insane at the time. Bless you, because that's crazy. I didn't mean that to be a pun. One of the clients was a hoarder. His room became full of every nasty thing you could imagine. He saved apple cores, feces, junk mail, or anything else he could get his hands on. We told him that his possessions were posing a health risk and that he'd have to reconsider what he was actually needed in the room. Tangent to this, we told him that he had 1 week to meet our facility's health regulations, or the room would be cleaned for him. Needless to say, he did not clean his room. Due to the risk of violence, we waited until he went on a trip to see his family and hauled everything out except for his bed and his clothing. We pulled out 2 truckloads of garbage bags. At the time, we were all sure he would escalate to violence, so 5 staff members were brought on site to deal with possible escalation. I even parked my car off-site to avoid it getting destroyed. On his way back from the trip, he had warned that some of his things were placed in storage. He became agitated and refused to discuss the issue. When we got back, he went into his completely spotless room, only to come out a short time later to make a sandwich in the kitchen. We asked if he was all right, to which he replied, "It needed to happen. Thank you for cleaning my room." Just as soon as he said that, the skies opened up to the biggest windstorm we had ever experienced. There was so much wind and rain, and the outside deck couldn't dissipate the water fast enough, and you could see 3 inches of it pressed against the sliding glass door. No sooner did it start than it ended with a 90-degree day, very uncommon in Vermont. The day went well, and I was surprised that there was no damage to any fallen trees. After all, it was a very crazy storm. It was even more surprising that my client had made a good decision for himself and used his words instead of escalating to violence. After work, a friend gave me a ride back to my vehicle, and we talked about how crazy the day was. As we pulled up, my car jaw dropped. The tree broken off at its trunks was laying across my hood. It was the only car parked at the park and the ride, and apparently it was the only tree down within a 10-mile radius. So that's what the police told me. Even more surprising, the tree had done absolutely no damage to my car. I looked up and started clapping. I knew that if God existed, he loved this irony. Next story. This may be a bit different from the others in the thread. When I was 11, my family stayed over at a house that used to belong to us. We hadn't sold it yet, but hadn't lived in it for a long time. My brother shared a room with me, and we slept next to each other, 3 beds. Just above the beds was a ledge, a long ledge to put things on, I guess. In the middle of the night, I woke up and felt panicked. Something was wrong. I remember everything vividly. I looked around, and then I saw it. Standing on the ledge just beneath the air conditioning unit was this thing. It looked like a little girl, but with long hair, basically the thing from The Ring. I freaked out. I screamed, or tried to, but my chest tightened up every time I did. Basically, I could breathe, but when I tried to scream, it felt like I was being choked and couldn't breathe and gave up. I tried a few times, but the exact same thing would happen every time. Then it began to laugh. It laughed really slowly, like slower than the slowest Santa's ho ho ho, but in the incomprehensible deep voice. An evil voice. Evil. That's what the thought that popped into my head, and the only way to describe it. I didn't know what to do, except leave in the name of Jesus Christ, and that's what I said. It's the first thing I could say. I croaked it out in a whisper, and it shrieked like it was shot. I repeated it again, managing to force out more air this time, and it shrieked again. I shouted the phrase the third time, and it left. It teleported to the foot of the bed and left. I thought about it for a really long time, and sleep paralysis was an explanation that seemed to fit most of the boxes, except for the way I forced myself out of it. I could only say those words. I could look around fine before I saw it. I've always believed in my faith, but this episode is one thing that puts it all beyond the shadow of a doubt for me. And someone replied with, I used to get sleep paralysis heaps when I was in my early teens to early 20s. Screwed up my sleeping pattern and made me afraid of the dark. Took me about 5 years to get over it and was able to sleep in a perfect dark room again. I had at least 6 times in my life. Some more scary than others, and learned to just wiggle your fingers and toes till you could move more. Felt like something was on top of you choking you, and you had the biggest sensation of fear. I've had one episode of sleep paralysis in my life, but it was a pretty different feeling. I know people who have been haunted by sleep paralysis, and it must be absolutely terrible. I would imagine so. So this next story says, I am Jewish, and I believe in a higher power, but I do not follow the rules that closely. As a little pre-story, I've always pictured God as a flying Statue of Liberty. I don't know why, but when I was younger, I pictured the Statue of Liberty flying around as God. Fast forward to about 10 years. I'm maybe 15 or 16, and I walk into a Jewish store that sells yarmulke or skull caps, that us Jews wear. Lo and behold, as this skull cap has a picture of the Statue of Liberty on it, as it was designed with a picture of the Statue of Liberty. There is no logical reason for a skull cap to have this design. Yes, they come in different colors, and for kids, it may have a cartoon or sports logo, but no child would want one that has a Statue of Liberty. I was in shock. On this day, at this moment, I decided to go into that store, and there in front of me was a skull cap with the Statue of Liberty. I purchased it and have yet to see another one anywhere like it. That's pretty cool, actually. Not a miracle or anything, but spring of 2013, God told my husband that we would have a child when he was 23. We went off to the birth control just after maybe 6 months of prayer and waffling. In the end, we decided obedience was more important than just arbitrarily testing God. Nothing happened for almost a year. I had hormonal troubles before so I was sad but not surprised. Out of frustration, I started to turn back to my old discorded eating coping mechanisms. Just as things were getting bleak, a month after we had totally given up, God delivered. We found out a week ago. Due date is June 16th, 2 weeks before my husband's 24th birthday. We were so happy and grateful. That's a good story. Next one is, I'm an agnostic, and I'm not sure if there is a God, but when I was around 16, I was diagnosed with depression. Not your everyday teen melodrama. I actually went to a psychiatrist. On a particularly bad day, I was crying in my room out of loneliness, and did the one thing that I never thought I would do, as a devout atheist at the time. I asked God for help. 5 minutes later, I get a call from a long-lost friend from elementary school. She apparently found my number somehow and called me after not being able to contact me for 5 years. It didn't cure my depression, but it made that day much better. I'm not sure if this was God or not, but it was definitely creepy and otherworldly. The week after my grandmother died, my mom received a voicemail from someone yelling out my mom's name over and over, as if they needed help or were struggling somehow. The voice sounded just like my deceased grandmother. My mom kept the voicemail for some time and played it for everyone in the family, and everyone agreed that it sounded just like my grandmother. It was very particular. We still can't explain it to this day. I'm a very skeptical person, but can't think of any other reason for such a message to be left on my mom's answering machine, other than it just being my grandmother communicating with us in the afterlife. And someone replied with, no other reason? None? Certainly a person who dislikes your mother playing a prank is more likely than the ghost, no? That's a possibility, but, try to be positive. You never know. Honestly, you don't. You never know. It was a couple of years ago. I had eaten magic mushrooms for the first time. Maybe too many. After repeatedly puking my guts out like the girl in The Exorcist, I was riding in the car wondering if I was dying from poison. Throughout the long car ride, I was wrestling with my inevitable demise, and eventually I couldn't struggle anymore and gave in to death, and I was dead. I became detached from all my cares and worries in a way that I never experienced before. I felt completely empty as I watched what would happen to my family and friends after I died. In my hollowness, if I listened very closely, there was a voice caressing me, whispering in my ear, "You are forever loved. Don't be scared. You never have any reason to be afraid. Everything is going according to plan. Everything is going to be okay," and so on and so forth. And I realized it was true. Everything will die. No problem is eternal. Everything works itself out in the end. One day the sun will explode and destroy everything. All of our problems and achievements will be lost and forgotten forever. And I saw that everything is perfect, absolutely perfect. The world and everything in it is unstoppable, unfolding process that has been spanning since the beginning of time. Everything that happens is meant to happen. Since the beginning, the Big Bang, and all that leading to this one moment of love and discovery. Nothing anyone could have ever done could have stopped this from happening. There is infinite meaning in every event. I have never experienced such beauty. That is really the only word for it, and I've come to see the truth, the divine in all. Not some beard on a cloud judging us, good or bad, but the divine is all that we have, is this physical expression of God. I'm sorry if that is hard to follow. It is very hard to experience to put into words. I know a lot of people will be like, it's just drugs, maybe. While that's true, I found truth during that experience that has increased my satisfaction and happiness in my life and the people in it, while increasing my wonder with the mystery of life and existence. Ray replied with, I've had similar experiences. I wrote about them briefly in this thread, if you're interested. Whether they were felt or saw was just the effects of a chemical cocktail we took one night doesn't really matter. The thoughts and revelations we experienced were just as real as if they had come to them through sobriety. I love you because you are me, and I am we. Okay, I think that's a good place to end that one right there. We'll come back and do some more of these, but if you're enjoying these, please leave a like. Maybe even subscribe, leave a comment. If you don't like them, do the same things. Well, you're probably not going to leave a like, but leave a comment. Let me know what you like, you don't like, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching and listening, and bye.